Hi, and welcome back to They Say It Takes a Village. Some of you probably know by now that this podcast and Wear That Now have joined forces, which is lucky because obviously this podcast is recorded with video and I have literally ran out of everything to wear. So everything and every outfit that you see on this podcast is all courtesy to them. For those of you who don't know how the concept works, let me explain it to you. If you head over to their Instagram account, which is at wear.that.now, and you click the link in their bio, you get to fill out a style survey. Once you're done, you get paired up with your very own personal stylist, who will then curate a personalized box to fit your occasion, your budget, and your style. That box will get sent straight to your doorstep for you to try the clothes in the comfort of your own home. The outfits that you love, you keep, and the ones that you don't, you simply return. It's as easy as that. So if you're anything like me, you've got occasions coming up throughout the year, and the idea of going to a busy mall, especially with little children, gives you anxiety. Then my suggestion would be to head over to at wear.that.now, fill out their style survey, and enjoy shopping from the comfort of your own home. Joining me today is a woman who has single-handedly changed the landscape of professional networking. Herself and her co-founder have set up a highly vetted network comprising of some of the most accomplished and influential women in the region. Crunchmoms. Crunchmoms has quickly become a name that's synonymous with excellence, community, support, and female empowerment. And I have one of two co-founders, Julie Nguyen, sitting across the table from me for me to ask her 1,000 questions about how Crunchmoms came to be and how important is it to support especially female entrepreneurs right from the very start. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this incredible episode, and help me welcome Julie.
Oh, I feel like I have my heart that was such an amazing introduction.
But it
felt
really
so
is
deep and real.
It
Thank
really
you.
is deep and real. You guys, you and Liang have honestly created something that it was missing. Like the fact that you've created a space for women to be seen, heard, and coached.
Yeah, honestly, I felt so touched just from your introduction. It felt so warm. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for being here.
We're so excited for this opportunity and to get the chance to speak with you. We're going to have fun. We're going to enjoy. And I know we're going to have a lot to share with everyone.
I'm so grateful. And I feel, it's one of those things that taking somebody's time, it's probably the most precious thing. So I feel like the moment I get you here, I've got like question after question after question. Like, let me start right from the beginning. Tell me about, obviously your journey. I've done a little bit of research and sort of background, information about you, but it's fascinating. Could you go a little bit back into childhood? How was that like? To understand somebody obviously and what they do for a living and what drives their passion, you kind of have to go back a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a great question to ask because I think it's not something that you see on one's LinkedIn or Instagram these days, to really know someone. I think for me, I think I don't often talk about my childhood with the people around me because my life is now focused on my, the age that I'm at. And it's really those that were around me in my childhood. So, for the listeners out there, I'm Julie Nguyen. I was born and raised in Austin, Texas in the United States. My parents are of Vietnamese background, of Vietnamese roots. They came from Vietnam to America in their early 20s. Oh, wow. And my older brother and I were raised in America. So we were in a very Vietnamese household, Vietnamese culture of like respect. You respect your elders, of like discipline, but also very nurturing and very warm. And at the same time, we were raised in a household that was, my parents trying to adjust and learn about American society and culture. Yeah. So I think growing up, like at a young age, when I went to school, I remember thinking that I was a minority. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know the word minority, obviously. But now when I think about it, I was one of the few Asian Americans. I look different than everyone. I think when you grow up in Texas, it's very blonde hair, blue eyes. Yeah. And so I remember thinking, okay, I'm different. And then as I grew older, it became very diverse, Austin, Texas is a very liberal area of all of Texas, where all of Texas is very conservative.
Yeah.
So you have people that are super international and open-minded. And I think having that in your surroundings is everything. I also believe that as I grew older, I just was in a diverse environment and not realizing it. So when I went to middle school and when I went to high school, when I was younger, let me backtrack a little bit. When I was younger, I was quite an introvert.
So was I.
Yeah, I was like a social butterfly at home and very outgoing at home with my family. I was like laughing and having a good time. And the moment I was at school, I was just so quiet and shy. And I think maybe because I was just observing everyone because I was trying to adjust.
Yeah. It's quite similar to us. I mean, I obviously had been in Australia as, sort of with an Iraqi background. And I think at home is always a safe space, right? So your personality does come through and shine. But you're right in saying that when you're in school or in any other particular place in public, you tend to be a bit more observant because there is, I think in your brain, there is like you're watching people to try to assimilate almost.
Yeah. And I listened to your podcast with your mother and I could very much relate to it. So I think like I was just kind of observing and I was an introvert. And then as I grew older, I kind of got out of my shell. So like middle school, high school, I was in track and cross country. So I had a group of friends that were like my sports friends. Yeah. And then I was, I had my friends that were like good kids, like-minded kids. So they were my group of friends. I did cheerleading for a year. So then I had that group of friends. And then I realized now that I had a really diverse group of friends, and even in college. And so I think when you grow up in a place like Austin, Texas, it's very tech, it's very liberal, the slogan is keep Austin weird. I had a quirky, weird personality. I think I picked up on like the upbringing of my parents of be warm, be kind, be respectful, you work hard. My parents came like starting from scratch from into America. And so it was kind of, didn't realize it, but I guess they hustled, to get us into the nice neighborhoods, to go to the nice schools, to be in the nice community environment.
It's those sacrifices of your parents.
Oh man. I think we will never understand that generation and what they had to go through.
It's true because adversity for us wasn't, it's not a thing at the moment. Thank God and touch wood, but no, nothing in comparison.
Yeah. So I would say if I had to recap my childhood without going into too much detail, it was happy. It was diverse. It was a lot of learning and experimenting. And I would say, we were taught to work hard. I think the one thing I will say is, in Vietnamese culture, I think the wife is usually the breadwinner, the decision maker, the dominant, I wouldn't say dominant one, but I would say the breadwinner. Yeah. And so I think I saw that in my household. And so maybe that's why
turned out
I don't know.
Incredibly highly motivated individual. Yeah.
So, I mean, I never left Austin, Texas. I only knew what I knew in this small town. I was quite sheltered until I came to Dubai.
When was that?
2009. I came out here when I was 21, 22.
What was the decision that made you come?
For work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I finished school and never left and just did it. Here I am.
That's it. You went to university and you thought, you know what, Dubai?
Yeah, I knew someone out here, my brother's friend.
Yeah.
And I came out for some work, thinking a few years. My parents spoke to the friend's parents and they said it's safe for women.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Can I ask, obviously now you have had obviously the start of your professional life was definitely corporate.
Yes.
And then you sort of pivoted to entrepreneurship.
Yes, that's correct.
Growing up, did you have any inclination of entrepreneurship?
No.
It's funny how that you are the fourth person to say that. No, it's almost like you stumbled across it.
Yeah, I think when you're in Austin, I was in college, I was surrounded by a lot of techies that were like from Silicon Valley and whatnot. And so I kind of observed them, and I always thought I would go down the corporate track. I think that was kind of instilled in me and like my childhood.
You get a really good job, you work up the ladder. Yeah.
And my brother was in banking. So I think my inspiration was everything my older brother does. So I was like, oh, he's in banking. I'm going to go in banking. So I went into like an internship in like wealth management and like Merrill Lynch. And I was just like, this is not an environment for me. But I always knew I was excited to work. I know it's such a weird thing to say, but I remember thinking I was going to be, I would work hard to get to where I needed
Driven.
to. Yeah. So no, entrepreneurship was definitely not a word I even thought of.
It's a scary word, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think I was someone that always put myself out there to try things. Which I didn't realize. Like I would be part of this group, this committee, creating this. I ran for like vice president my junior year in high school. I remember campaigning, and my surname is Nguyen. So I remember the campaign was, it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. Oh, nice. I like it. Oh, I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that in the write-up. This was a win-win conversation.
But no, never crossed my mind.
So obviously, I mean, we're now, so fast forward an X amount of years, and we're here talking about Crunchmoms.
Yes.
But I think we have to also go back again to story of origin. And I think from the conversations that we had, obviously off camera, it's almost like there was the turning point in your life, which is becoming a mother.
Yeah. So if I talk about origin, right? So being from Austin, I think I had this personality in me. Being in Texas, people are very hospitable, Southern, friendly. So that was kind of instilled with me. Like anytime you see someone in the morning, you say, good morning, how are you? You give hugs. And I think that's the kind of person I am.
You are.
Yeah. Then, being Vietnamese, we're always very respectful of people's time, of our elders. We were, I guess, I want to say structured or disciplined in a way that you just work hard and you
get it done.
Yeah, you just get it done.
Yeah.
And then I think being in corporate, I got a lot of experience. So if I described like my origins, I think it's a mix of like warm and friendly and working hard and just keeping it simple in that way. And so, and I think because I'm around diverse cultures and backgrounds growing up, I just kind of would blend in with different groups. Like I would just like be fine with kind of interacting and socializing with people of all ages, all backgrounds, all nationalities.
That's really, I mean, obviously now this is the perfect fit because you're living in the UAE and you've got, a plethora of different cultures and backgrounds, and to be able to have that and seamlessly communicate across cultures, that's essentially what you need.
Yeah.
So
and I don't realize how much like I gained and learned from that until now.
Really important. And it's actually quite surprising because naturally you think Texas is being quite
conservative.
Yeah.
And it is.
It is. Is it?
Yeah. But Austin
is not.
Okay. And you have people that are super open-minded, super, super liberal.
Yeah.
And I think being in an environment, but not everyone, right? So you're still in a conservative environment. So I had a group of friends that were like extremely conservative. And then I had a group of friends that were super liberal. And so I didn't know my political views on things. I didn't know. And so when people would ask me, I didn't know. So I would just listen and observe, how people would be.
It's very smart, honestly. That's what they say, that you gain power and knowledge by just staying quiet and observing.
Yeah. I guess I could say introvert, or I was just kind of observing. So
I think it's a superpower.
Yeah, that was my childhood. That was my background. Yeah. And then motherhood.
I feel, so tell me how, obviously you've moved out to Dubai, you were working. I'm assuming you met your husband.
Yeah.
And then, decided to have children.
Yeah. So I moved to Dubai when I was 21, 22. I would say humble beginnings. And I chose this room that was like tiny. It was like a closet, but it was cool roommates. Like I just kind of immersed myself here, and I worked in the traditional corporate jobs. I was in marketing roles. I was in comms roles. I worked for some tech clients. I worked with a Abu Dhabi conglomerate. And then I worked in Amsterdam. I can go into detail later.
Yeah.
But I got married here. So I'm Vietnamese American and my husband is Pakistani, and we met here. We got married, and then my job relocated me to Amsterdam for a few years. So I was in a corporate office, in the head office, and that's when my entrepreneurship journey started. But I'll tell you about that in a bit.
Okay.
But then we ended up coming back to Dubai for my husband's job, and I had a baby. So my motherhood journey. So I had my son in Amsterdam, and I just fell in love. I was so in love with the baby. I just could not stop looking at him. I couldn't believe what I'd created. And I'm an emotional one. I'm a sensitive one. And so it's like next level emotions and sensitive when I had the baby. And, I think what I learned really early on was resilience. And the reason for this is because my husband had to leave back to Dubai for work 2 weeks after I had the baby.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. And then for some reason, last minute, we thought we would move everything like months later, but we moved the week after, like we packed up everything in our house the week after I had the baby.
My God.
I know. Thinking about it now in hindsight. And so my mom was there for a few weeks. And then basically my husband and my mom like weren't around. And I took care of my son on my own in Amsterdam because I had to stay there until he got his passport. So
for how long?
For a few months.
Okay.
No nanny, no help. You didn't have that in Amsterdam.
Of course not.
And so, but it was like really chill. Like it was calm and I just felt really proud. I felt like
a bit grounded.
I felt connected. I know it sounds really cheesy, but I felt really connected with my child. Yeah. I felt like really proud because it's like just showering without someone to watch the baby or packing a suitcase to go to the airport.
Do you mean you felt proud of the fact that you were doing it?
Yeah. Like I remember one day I was able to clean and feed and shower.
And looking back, you think, wow,
I was
that
like,
was just really...
yeah. And so I think from there, motherhood started off like about like resilience.
Yeah.
And fast forward now, I have 2 kids, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I love it. Yeah. I'm really connected with them. Moments are highs, moments are lows.
Of course.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard work.
It definitely is.
You learn how to grow and how to connect, and you're telling your inner self every single day, we're hard on ourselves, right?
Of course,
I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have done that. But every single day is just a constant battle of how you talk to yourself and how you talk to your kids.
I know.
But motherhood, I mean, just like everyone else's story, right? It's great.
But then I want to sort of get to the point where obviously, so you've got, you were working corporate, then you had a baby. And then when was that sort of light bulb moment for Crunchmoms? Did you meet obviously Li Ying and then you guys came up with it, or how did that
I'm happy to tell the story.
Yeah.
So, my entrepreneur journey, I think kind of that light bulb moment was when I was in Amsterdam. So I was in a job that was basically, it's a very traditional business, engineering. So it's like construction, design, very male dominated. We were a core team that was like a startup team in a corporate environment that was kind of given the remit, big budget to like really disrupt the business and the industry. So we were given a huge budget and they were just like, construction, can you imagine like when they're still doing paper designs? Like, can you imagine for big projects like the Burj Khalifa, like having to hand over and consult? Oh, it's a mess. Yeah. And so we were given the remit that, okay, here's your budget. We got to use technology more within construction. We have to train people on how to use this technology. We have to speak to our clients differently. So I was running programs with like City of Amsterdam, MTA, the bus stations in New York. Like, how can we be smarter? Like, you built this infrastructure. How can we be smarter that, people use people down to use phones instead of like the tickets. Yeah. How can you think smarter for the cities and cars? So we worked differently with like the cities. And then we were told like, we got to understand data analytics. We got someone to look after analytics and innovation. And so we were everyone was in like corporate suits and all. And we just showed up like in sweaters and like hoodies. And we're like, we're going to make change happen. And we did. Like, it was incredible it was 28,000 people business. And so I think that's when I had a dose of that you can create something from scratch. Yeah. Like, I remember creating programs, not knowing, but creating something from scratch. And I realized that you can make change happen with people, with clients. And we were learning as well about entrepreneurship and startup life and lean startup at the same time as building something. So I think that was my first dose of entrepreneurship. I was so excited. I was pumped. I loved my job. I traveled all over the world with a really cool team. We had so much fun, but it was a challenging role because we had a lot of like execs like on us. Then in that role, I got pregnant. And in that role, I continued to do what I did with the energy and everything. And it was amazing. We decided to relocate to Dubai for a number of reasons, which I'm very happy for family, for just, it's our place,
Absolutely.
Right? And when I came back, I was on maternity leave and I didn't have help. I was ready to go back. Not ready. I was expected to go back.
Yeah.
And I was so upset. I was so upset. This is the emotional and the sad side of me, right? The women that do it, that just like I'm ready to go back. Like I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And I was given a new role, a new title, a new remit, which everyone should be happy with. But I realized
a lot of pressure.
Yeah. But I realized if the culture was not the same in the Middle East and in our head office, when the role's not as exciting, there's definitely, you need to have something exciting, for sure, right? You have your full-time job, right?
Definitely.
So
something that keeps you going.
Yeah, something that keeps you going. And so I had this moment where I was on maternity leave, had so many ideas, similar to you with your COVID. And it was,
you had like a little moment to yourself.
Yeah. I remember the baby I'd put to sleep and I was just like, it's a funny story, Dubai style.
Yeah.
I was supposed to go on a staycation with friends over the weekend. And I realized I hadn't done anything to take care of myself. I barely showered. And I was like, how come no one takes care of the mother? I was like, but no one tells you this. Like, no, I mean, now I'm surrounded by women. I'm telling everyone, like, make sure you take it.
Exactly. Take a moment. Nobody.
So I was like, why is there not something for the mom? There was everything to take care of the kid. And so I had the idea of like home services when someone has has just had a baby, nails, I'm not someone that like is passionate about like, I love, beauty and stuff, but I'm not someone that would be so passionate about like
to pursue it as a full-time thing.
Yeah. And then I realized when I went back to work that I was passionate and dedicated and ambitious. I knew I was always someone that was going to work.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know was how difficult it was to juggle a new role of motherhood, my new perspective on life, my new responsibilities. And I think, I'm sure you heard this on every episode, is it all started when I became a mother.
100%.
Like everything, like how you perceive things, how your perspective was.
Yeah.
So I had this idea, and I think what I learned, and for any of the women that are in corporate, my network, my work, everything was within my company. What I realized is I wasn't networking outside of the company. So when I left the company, I realized I had to create new contacts.
That's right.
Right? New friends, new people that I could speak to. Everyone I knew was in construction, engineering. And I mean, that's great. They're awesome people, but I'm not doing that anymore. Right?
Somebody there's a lot of, because obviously your situation has changed. You need to have people around you in similar setups. So it's relatable. Yeah.
So like what you do, you have your full-time job, but you're meeting so many incredible women at this, like with this podcast.
That's so true.
And I think the fact that you have that, I think is so good for you and just rewarding and important.
That's it. It's honestly, it is a psychological, it's almost like a little bit of a therapy thing for me because you tend to, obviously you connect with people who are like-minded. You have conversations that are enriching, not to say in your actual career or within your corporate job, they weren't, but your circumstances have changed.
Exactly.
And it's sort of adapting to that new phase in life. And I don't know what it is about motherhood. There's this thirst for connection.
Exactly. And so I think, for example, like we have less time when we become mothers. You don't realize how much we could have done like in our 20s and whatnot.
It's wasted.
Exactly. We relax, which is always good to do, right? But I think, where was I? I was thirsty for something, right? Yeah. And so when I came back to Dubai, I had noticed this ecosystem of startups and tech companies, which I was surrounded by in Austin. And I was super excited about it. And I was like, this is more exciting. Taking what I did in my corporate job that had that startup vibe to it, I was like, this is what I want, right? Mm-hmm. And so I just started ideating. I took what I learned, like I had the Post-its and the boards, and I was just, and I remember my husband coming home and being like, okay, like what is this? And even when I was back at work, I was breastfeeding, and I remember being in the room, taking my notebook and just going to town. And so to answer your question of how it all started, I mean, it all started with motherhood.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm like, that's why we need to hear the motherhood journey, because it all started from there.
It really did. Yeah. And then, so basically how I met Li-Ying, how this started, I just put myself out there and just started connecting with people. Would you like to have coffee? I'm from Austin. I've been in the ecosystem. I've been out. I would love to connect. And so that's exactly what I did. And then I had this moment where I was like, I wanted to help moms with careers, with business. I spoke to my friends and they would give me answers like, you either work or you don't. And if you work, you're not there to raise your kids. And I thought, this is not fair.
That's not fair.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be this way.
Yeah. And then, my husband's like, there's so many women that still work. There's a way to do it. My brother, my mother, they just encourage me to keep going with my work. They kind of just don't, like, once you get out, don't lose that. So
the village stepped in.
Exactly. Yeah. The village. But if you don't have the village, but that's the village back at home, right? I didn't have that village here.
Yeah.
And so I remember that I just did a shout out for like on LinkedIn about helping moms, helping women in business. And one day when I was at work, I had this form that was.
So you were still technically working.
I was still technically
But you were
working.
wanting.
I snuck into the meeting room for any of my employers that are listening. I snuck into, not snuck. I went to have a meeting, but really in the meeting room, I looked at this.
That juggle. Yeah.
I looked at this form, and on this form that was filled out, Li Ying's name was there.
Yeah.
She was the first. I'm not even exaggerating that, like for the listener, like she was the first person I called.
Shout out, Li Ying.
Yeah.
You're amazing.
She's amazing. And I called her and I was really nervous. I was like, what am I going to say? I was like, okay, so you filled out this form. I have these ideas about supporting women and moms and getting them back to work, or helping them with businesses. And she just had this vibe and energy and happiness that was just, yeah, I'm this, I do this, I'm Li Ying, I worked in startups in Singapore. I haven't been here for very long. What do you need? And I was like, okay, could you help with this? Yeah, sure. Or would you like to try doing this? Yeah, sure. And I was like, okay, wow. Good vibes.
Good vibes.
So we kept in touch. I called a lot of people later on that day. Not the same vibes at all. Like some people just like complained, some people were rattling about stuff. And so I just felt happy vibes, right?
Yeah.
I never met her because COVID happened.
Oh my god.
So we just jumped on call after call. And I thought, this girl is
on fire.
She's on fire. And she's just down. Like we just gelled. Like I was like, we do this. She's like, yeah. And I wasn't paying her. She believed in it. And I think the thing with her is she just believed in helping women because she relocated. She had a great job, like starting like the cream of Southeast Asia. And she moved out here with her husband, so she could relate to the topic. So the story of how we met was on LinkedIn. I think Li Ying is of Singapore background. And so everyone, when they see us now, they think we've been friends for ages, that we're sisters.
I mean, you guys have such a beautiful relationship and partnership.
Yeah. I mean, I think like any relationship, like my marriage, actually.
Yeah.
It was just organic. No question. Like, are we boyfriend, girlfriend? Are we partners? We just said, we're going to work. And we would just do call after call. And
then did you meet each other face to face at
that point? And we met face to face when the restrictions are down. And it was funny because we like kind of did intros again, like after having worked together.
I'm Julie.
Yeah. And we just had this vibe that worked.
And then at that point, I mean, what was the idea? You wanted to set up a space for women to go to.
So if I backtrack I knew what the problem was.
Yeah.
We did, I did exercises after exercises. The problem is that, a lot of women leave the workforce. The stats are in the Middle East, you have the highest number of educated women in the world in the Middle East.
So this is the thing. The inflexibility of a job has left women who are beyond qualified, more qualified than their male counterparts potentially, leaving jobs because they've chosen to start a family.
Correct.
And the fact that you have identified this and provided a solution is unbelievable. But I don't want to take away from it. So yes.
I can. Yeah. So I saw stats that the highest number of educated women are in the Middle East. Yet the Middle East has the lowest number of women in the workforce and in entrepreneurship. And I thought, why? Then obviously I thought, okay, I'm like, I think there was a survey recently, research by PwC, is that 60% of women take a break for career. And the longer that break is, the harder it is to go back.
That's right.
So then I dug a little deeper. I'm like, okay, so if we take a break, maternity leave, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 years, whatever that is, what are the options and why are they not going back? So they don't have the flexibility. In my corporate job, I was given some flexibility. I was in a job in Amsterdam, same company, where I could work from home, I could work remotely. I remember them calling me saying, you can't be at home even if your kid's sick. I was like, you can't just work from home. Although I'd known the company, known the people, they knew my dedication to the place. So for me, I was like, that's already inflexible, I was like, surely.
It puts you off.
Yeah.
It demotivates you. Yeah.
And there are countless of these stories. So if women were to go back, they wanted a place with flexibility. Maybe in those first few years, maybe once they had kids, older kids, it would be different. Then I thought there has to be other options. I was like, I'm excited about building Crunchmoms. I'm excited about building a startup, a business. And I was like, there should be more women doing this because then they can do it in their own time. And then the other part was there are women that are not doing a business, not working, but surely they have backgrounds, surely they have experience, but surely we can bring them and upskill them, get them networking.
Absolutely.
So how this came about, I was just Googling random names online. And the word crunch stood out to me. I think I was on TechCrunch or Crunchbase, that website that has like all the startups. Yeah. And I realized crunch is a word that doesn't describe someone working or doesn't describe someone at home, but getting stuff done. It's crunch time. So you could be picking up the kids, juggling this, juggling that. And I was like, that's a brilliant word.
I love it.
It could sound like a gym or cereal, but I felt like, okay, you could, but you could make it work. So with the word moms, I'm American. So I don't use the word mom like in Australia. So
Crunchmoms. That's how it came about.
Yeah. So it's for everyone.
It's getting things done, which is what they do.
Exactly. And
I love it.
Thank you. And one thing I will add is I also get all the time, is this only for moms? Yeah. Yeah. And so we talked long and hard about this. And one is there are not enough resources for moms if they want to jump back. And so to know that they can feel not intimidated, that we provide babysitting services, we provide online services, we provide all things that if you're a mom, we'll help you out. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. And two, I think that, if women want to become moms, that at least they have a group that they can go to before. Absolutely. That like kind of gears them up because I didn't have this.
No, neither did I.
And then three, I feel like, moms are nurturing. So I think if women enjoy no matter what, like, the talk is about work, business. It's about
they kind
life.
Of band together.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And, a lot of the times it was missing. And I feel like you guys you've kind of brought your A game and you've took it to the next level because, mom groups are great, but they're potentially, they may not fulfill that feeling that I, for example, had to try to do something.
Exactly.
They're amazing when you want to get sort of bounce off ideas on why a baby's not sleeping or not eating or what suggestions. And I'm all for it. Any type of community. But I feel like you guys married the two. A motherhood community, but also very much entrepreneur driven with support and ideas and workshops and practical, ways to start businesses. And I find that in itself is like a unicorn when it comes to a networking, establishment.
Well, let's hope it's a unicorn one day as well.
It really is.
Yeah. And I think that's it because I realized that who I am as a person is not just the mother.
No.
I have ambitions. I have dreams. I have hobbies.
Yeah.
And so I think what Crunchmoms is about is if you want to go back to work, we will work with you to get back to work. We have corporate partners. We do coaching. We can place you into jobs. We can prep you for interviews. We can help you with that business, or we can help you kind of figure out what it is you want to do.
It's
we
brilliant.
Run coaching programs. Yeah. So
I feel like it should be like a prerequisite. Become a mom, join Crunchmoms.
Oh, that would be cool.
Good. That's it. As you're filling out your birth plan, it should be honestly, because again, I was so lucky to be, with you guys doing talks and things like that. And the way that you guys set it up, it provides for the most creativity, brainstorming, support. It's one of those things that I've never felt a level of connection.
Yeah.
Honestly, in a very, very long time. So I was so taken back by, of course, their expertise as well. You've got, again, some of the most accomplished women, in your network, which is, somewhat intimidating, but also really humbling,
Yeah. It's stories like yours, right? You had your job.
Yeah.
You had your kids. And you wanted more, right? And I'm not saying every woman has to go out there and get do everything. Like it's okay to not have a job right now. Mm-hmm. It's okay, but if that's something that you desire, then you got to go for it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think because when we're mothers, we spend a lot of our time with the kids and taking care of them that we're like, let's not lose track of what we want to achieve.
That's true.
And so that's why we exist.
Yeah.
And, I think one of the beautiful things that we were very, very conscious about was community.
I think that's your secret sauce. That was my question. Because there's so many networking, sort of setups, professional networking, events and things like that. But you guys do have a secret sauce.
And, I'm happy to share it. I'm just going to share like how the thought process was. But I think when Crunchmoms first started, I didn't know of networks here.
Okay.
I didn't know of communities. I saw mom groups, but I wanted to be around other moms that were talking and focus on business and career.
Yeah.
And so the first, I wouldn't say strategy, but the thought was it has to be community focused. And everyone was talking community, but I was like, no. Let's dig deeper. What does a community mean? Community means I had an upbringing of being around Vietnamese community, with my parents' friends. That was our community, right? I had a neighborhood that I lived in. That was my community. So that community was kind of like your family, your village, your tribe, right? Yeah. But it's like, if I can't do this, that person will help me. And so for me, it was like the women need to come and just feel warm, welcome, but you have to bring in that feeling and the surrounding that when this person comes, that they're going to be supportive for that woman and that woman. Yeah. And so we wrote down values. We wrote down what is it that people should feel when they come? What is it that this mom is probably facing that she's just juggled and really tired and she comes in and like, and I think going back to my childhood, like I'm just like a hugger as well. Same. So it's just like you feel comfortable, right? Yeah. So then it kind of all of the concerns or like anything that you would feel intimidated by, you just feel welcome. Yeah. And so, when we started this business, a startup, I always knew tech startup. I always knew like big women's network. I always knew helping women go back to work, helping women start businesses, helping women in transition. But I said in the first few years, we focus on just creating a name that's being a true community. And
that's what it is.
And you don't focus on dollar symbols. You focus on the people that come, that make the time. Was it worth their time? Did they feel good? Did they learn something? And the first event, I wasn't sure if anyone would show up. I think one person showed up. And I remember calling my husband. I was like,
one person.
That's what I said. I was like a little sad, but I was like, okay. But when that first person showed,
I said, if one person listened to this podcast, it'll be fine. Yeah. One person did.
I could relate to you when you shared that. Then the week after, we did an event every single week since we started. And during COVID, you couldn't have more than, and running events is a lot.
It is a lot. There's a lot that goes into it.
But when one person liked it, they would tell someone else. They would tell someone else. I wouldn't push referrals. They liked who they met. We had a good conversation. And, I remember at one point when COVID restrictions were away, I think it was Lucy Bruce's event. You should have her as a speaker. Yeah. I think like 30 women showed up.
And you're blown away.
And I was like, oh my, like I couldn't focus on the talk. I was just kind of like,
is this real?
Yeah. And then it just,
then you had a summit.
It's hard work. It's hard work. And then we had a summit. But what I will say for the listeners is if you don't know the journey of something, don't assume like someone just got 10,000 followers or they had a platform of 5,000. It was like,
every
thought after thought
and it's agony, when they say blood, sweat and tears.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
And but I find that that's the most, you guys, again, I think we kind of are very similar in the sense that there is this level of being sort of consistent and tenacious about what you are wanting. Like you said, to be able to hold events week after week after week, not knowing the outcome, but you've got this guttural, instinctive thing that, you're confident that this is going to provide value. I mean, it has now. I mean, you've got, I don't know how many members and how many times that you've hold events. And I mean, honestly, you guys are probably, and I'm going to say it, the best out there. So you just have to keep going and doing exactly that.
That means a lot.
But it really is. It's that level of, you've got this almost, I don't even know what it is, this unrealistic, hopeful, even if you felt a little bit, like you said, you felt a bit sad, but no, we're going to move forward. That one person is 1+.
Yeah.
The next person is 5 and then 30 and then X amount.
Yeah.
That's how it builds. And I think everyone wants to get to the summit, right? nobody cares about the 1%. It's not a sexy talk. The hard work and the effort and the emotion that goes into it. They want to talk about the fact that you had this massive summit and you guys are the number one female empowerment, highly vetted network.
Yeah. That first person, I will give a shout, Taryn Myers. I remember when she showed up, I was like, she's a girl in my corner. Yeah. I was like, the first 3 women that show up, like it was everything for us. Right. And we reciprocated, right? They knew that we supported them. And I think I feel like the first year, I'm sure with you as well, I feel like it didn't count because it was COVID, right? So it was kind of just talking with a small group. But by year 2, that's when restrictions were lifted. So that's when I think the event that we had with Lucy, when 30 women showed up, you could have as many people at a restaurant.
In one space, yeah.
So I felt like we were just the 8 people around the table. We did what we could and we learned a lot. How was this? Did you like this? What kind of speaker? By the second year, I said, there needs to be a way to really get people together. And so an idea came of the summit and we said, let's just bring women together, talking real things, not just business, not like your typical conference. Everyone's suited up. Like we're going to keep it real. We're going to talk about the things that people don't talk about as mothers and as a community. So we just started planning for this summit. We didn't know what location, we've never hosted an event like this.
You put summit in your mind.
We put summit in our mind. Crunchmoms Summit. And I said, we set a date and we don't change it. Right. And we were October. And basically that event I was calling people that I was like, every speaker we have, I take the time to speak to them. Gut feeling, vibe, genuine, not selling. And I just would call people. I was like, oh, I love that. I was like, tell me more about yourself. Probably similar to exactly what you do. And we got speakers. We had 200 people buying tickets.
Amazing.
Yeah. And we provided, how you get the goodie bags at summits and conferences and it's always like the random.
Guys, the goodie bags are unreal. I'm using every single thing in the goodie bag.
Yeah.
Everything.
So I remember going to a conference being like, I'm just giving a bunch of flyers and stuff. I was like, this is not thoughtful.
No.
So I was like, how can we make it thoughtful? What is it that women want? Like nice things, like things that they can use for their homes.
No, it's literally everything. You've also brought the A game of skincare. The goodie bags.
We've had some good partners. Yeah, we've had some good partners. So basically from this summit for 2 days, I remember the night before, our swag didn't show up. It was like extremely late. It showed up the day before the event. Oh. So it took up my entire living room, my entire house. And Ling and I were just packing things. And I remember looking, I was like, are we crazy? I was like, what are we doing? And then I remember on the last day of summit, there was just strong emotions from everyone. Like, I think one of our speakers, Rania, was like, I've been to so many events. She's like, I've never been to one as thoughtful and intentional for women as this one. And for me, Ling, we were just looking at each other. And then the women were coming up to us saying like, thank you. This has changed my perspective on things. And I realized that we don't need this corporate talk. We need the real stuff and hear from real people. So from when Ling and I think about when we were organizing, like I'll show you pictures, you'll laugh afterwards. And then to when we were there, we were just like, okay, we're onto something. And we knew that having and starting a business is not easy, right? You do everything. For Summit, we did every design. I mean, the number of times we would put the wrong person's headshot on like another person's name. And I was like, oh yeah.
That's just actions.
But I think the women
have a problem.
They all know now, right? But they know that it was like we were doing everything
on your own.
Everything.
Yeah.
And that we had newborn babies at the time, by the way.
I know.
And so I think that's a very special moment for Ling and I. And I think whenever we hear the stories of women and what, like, they come to us like, oh, you have no idea, like, what I'm doing now, how, like, this summit's changed my life, or like how this has helped me. This is what keeps us going. Because there are moments where I'm like, what are we doing? What's happening? Why is it slow? Why, you put those pressures on yourself.
That's right.
And then when you hear that story, you're like, okay, we have to remember these moments because that's why we're doing it at the end of the day.
Absolutely. honestly, it's such an inspiration. And I could literally talk about, I want you to sit and dissect every single event because it really is like that. It is the most thoughtful and intentional way to support women.
Yeah. And I think at a certain point, it was like, you know what? Is fast the right way? No, it's
slow and steady.
Quality. Yeah, slow and steady.
Slow and steady. That's how I do things in every aspect of my life. I would love to be the one that does things and it's super fast. It's, blingy and, very, very, makes the headlines and it's remarkable. I'm the more take your time.
That's the way to do
and it will get there.
And look at where we are now.
Well, yeah. And touch wood, I'm very, very happy. And it's the only way that psychologically I can cope. I find a lot of it, we do remarkable things as mothers every day, to be able to juggle is remarkable, and other things will just have to go at the pace that they go at. And I'm always in awe of people that have this, this fast paced thing, but that's just not the way I can do things.
I was in awe as well. And I would be like, wow, how? And then because we hosted so many events, I heard of women that ran businesses that, they raised money. They were in all these stores, or they just grew really fast. And then I'm not saying all of them, but some of them I'm like, man, that's sounds really tiring. Like I also don't want to burn out because I have to take care of my kids.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
And I had that moment last year because I think I was extremely overwhelmed. And I thought, I think at the end of the day, there's this wheel of life that we have in Crunchmoms. It's not owned by Crunchmoms. It's anyone can do it. But we run a program called Designing Your Life that was started by 2 Stanford professors. It's basically like the playbook for startups, but they design something for people. And one of the activities is the wheel of life. So in our lives, we have our family, our loved ones, our health, our physical environment, our home, because if our home's not in order. And they always say you prioritize 3, because if you try to do all, it won't. But I had a moment at the start of this year, is that I realized just put everything else as secondary, and the central part of being me or you should always be the first, because you will always work. You will always take care of your kids. But if you make that your priority, yourself would always be last. So it took me last year to realize that. So now everything I do, I'm like, is that going to give me energy or is that going to drain me? And I'm one that wants to be friends with everyone. I want to be liked by everyone. I want to do good. I want to be kind because I'm very intentional and I don't mean to hurt anyone, right?
No, but it doesn't serve you.
It doesn't. I realized that didn't serve me. I ended up feeling really, really overwhelmed. And I had a second young baby. And so then I realized when we actually just say, what do you prioritize in that wheel of life? You say yourself, you end up doing the other stuff. But if you do yourself first, then at least you do it with energy.
That's it. I find, the idea, again, it always comes up in conversations, especially with very, very driven women, burnout. And this whole idea of sometimes people tend to think burnout is almost like a badge of honor when it isn't. It isn't. It's not going to be a determinant on the performance of your business or how hard you work. Burnout is something that you've almost neglected who you are as a person, and that you're going to be no good to anybody, not your business, not your family, nobody. So if there isn't something, and I don't think it's almost like, I think everybody will interpret this very differently. The way that I'd be able to sort of fulfill myself and whatever I need is very different to the way that you would, or take care of myself will be different to you. And I think it's just the ability to recognize that. What is going to reset you a little bit so that you can potentially keep going with whatever responsibilities, tasks, hopes, dreams that you potentially have. And it's a very, very interesting thing because I find we have a very, a hustle hard culture. And the ability to say no, you're always praised for being a yes woman or a yes man. And no seems very much resistant and, a negative thing. Whereas we really need to start looking at the word no as honestly quite empowering. Saying no is not you being a bad sport. It's recognizing that you just cannot take on another task. That's not potentially going to give you anything that you feel of value.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's exactly it. I mean, you would never want anyone to reach a burnout or a low. It's like a horrible, like, cause you're not in the right headspace for decisions. You're not in the right space for the people around you. And then by saying no, I think these days people should understand, like, you know, when one is, it has to be done. And I think by saying no, I mean, I used to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And I was exhausted.
Absolutely.
I was exhausted.
Say, like, I'll push myself a little bit further. Yes, I'll do this. Yes, I'll do. And then by the end of it, I'm so tired and I've got no patience for my husband or my kids or life or work or podcast. So it's to say no, to say, I'm sorry, I just cannot do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people respect it, but I also just think, like, I mean, we know we've heard this, we've said it, but we really do have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like,
in whichever way you find that is going to take care of you.
Yeah.
You know, what you have to pinpoint it. Of course, if it's, you know, I don't know what it is, but I just find a lot of the times taking care of myself is here with you today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it will give me such a lovely sort of start to the day. I feel good. I feel fulfilled. I had a beautiful conversation. The whole day is going to work out quite nice because I did fill up this cup.
Yeah.
But again, it's burnout, self-care. These words get thrown around so often. And, you know, I hear moms saying, oh, self-care, like I've got another thing to add on my plate. But it doesn't have to be, you know, getting your nails done or getting a massage where you're feeling quite guilty or you don't have time to fit it in. It's whatever it is that you don't feel guilty for doing. Yeah. But it's just for you.
Yeah. I think honestly, like, I think even if, like, I work nonstop. Like, I drop the kids off. I'm working. I pick them up from school. I get back. I work. I put them to bed. I work. And then I realized that, I was like, I'm always working. And then I realized, like, I had like one coffee by myself and a gym session, no husband, no work meeting, no kids. I just sat there and I was like, it doesn't have to be a full long day, right? You just got to find these moments.
Just a moment that you think, okay, it's fine. I do the same thing. I like a coffee and I always do. And I engineer it into my day. Midday, you'll always find me having a meal and having a coffee alone.
Yeah. But you have to do it in the right space.
In the right space. Yeah. And I, you know, like, for example, 21 grams, perfect space.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Not just physical space, right space in your mind. But I do make that as an intentional point because I'm hungry. I love a coffee and I just need about 45 minutes to an hour.
And that's precisely it. And I think especially with you, with full-time job, with kids, with the podcast, we're so fulfilled, right? We're so fulfilled, but it is not easy. Those worlds intertwine.
You keep going. You keep going and you keep pushing because it's for the good of the podcast, for the good of the kids. You know, work. There's always going to be a reason to keep going.
Yeah. And I think there's no such thing as balance.
Oh, my next question. Your thoughts on balance.
Yeah. So when we first wrote the script for the website for Crunchmoms, we said it's not about balance. It's about boundaries, right? Set the boundaries from this time to this time, right? Balance.
I might use that in my tone.
Yeah, please do. Because the balance looks like a 50-50, but the reality is it's not like that for anyone. Even if you're not working and you're at home with the kids, I mean, there's no such thing. So with boundaries, you're able to set those boundaries. And I think it's hard, right? When you're multing 3 things at the same time, your full-time job, you're coordinating this, you're making calls for the podcast, you're like calling the kids, you're having to go for the book reading. Yeah. So
the school engagement.
It's not a balance. But the wonderful, one of our wonderful speakers, another person you should have, Halima Jumani.
Oh, okay.
Co-founder of Kipson's e-commerce.
Yeah.
She did a whole boardroom series for our members. And her words have stuck with me. She said it's just an hour by hour decision making.
Yeah.
So you set the boundaries. And if your hour is to sort out that issue with something that happened in the business, you focus that hour. If that next hour your kid's calling you for homework, you're getting onto that call and doing homework. If you had a terrible day, she's like, that next hour, she's going to go to the hairdresser to, like, you know, she's human and a woman as well, right?
Yeah.
So the boundaries.
It's like crisis management.
Yeah. But if you think about it, like, it is also the inner talk. So for me, it's like, okay, how could I have been more efficient? What could I have done? You know, what I did yesterday, I exhausted my entire time doing, you know, something that probably I shouldn't have spent my time doing, like responding to every person that was messaging me when my priority was getting this done. So I think balance, it's boundaries, but it's I don't want to use the word crisis management, but it's like, problem solving every hour.
Reallocating priority.
Yeah, it's figuring out your priorities and talking to yourself about how you do it every hour. Because I mean, I think we work and think on an hourly basis.
It's true.
Time is flying by way faster with kids.
Absolutely, it's so true.
Yeah,
it's so true, and it's endless. The list is endless, and this is actually the perfect example. I'm at the moment trying to prep for a talk, but I have our interview today. So yesterday was all about our interview. That's what I feel like that was my balance. I also had a lot of things to do with kids' school. So that's where it was. For example, today it would be about the talk. And that's the way that I can find a little bit of balance. And I do think that it is hour by hour, but I think if you zoom out a little bit, you need to kind of have a look at balance within like a week or a month collectively or a year.
Very good point.
And it's just, if in a year you might feel you've done something more than the other, it might be time to rejig.
You've given me an aha moment. That's true.
And that's it. I find if I sit there and be hyper focused of I've given 10% to this, but no, now I have to shift my focus to I can't, no one can live like that.
And you're right, though. I think if there's the word balance, it's not looking at it from a day to day or week by week basis. Balance is looking at the overhaul for the year.
Absolutely.
So, for example, my year last year was just work, feed kids, because I was still like feeding.
Feed kids, feed babies.
And then I was like, whoa, you know, I didn't take any time for myself. So I think we need to have those moments to find when we balance it out in the sense of we're working nonstop. Let's do something for ourselves.
1000%.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you personal and non-personal questions. What would you say in the process of setting up Crunchmoms, so professionally, what were your biggest challenges? Or some of the biggest.
Some of the biggest challenges. Sometimes there are people along the way. I think. I think when you start a business, I always thought the issues would be like, you know, the hard parts would be scaling or finding or marketing or like providing a solution or a service that people want. But what I learned is there are times when there can be people challenges. And I think when you also run like a women's network, you have to do it with grace and with the right intentions. But there are also some people that just don't have the values. I think there were a few moments in like the early years of Crunchmoms where I met some people that just weren't aligned. Right? And I think those are the moments that are the hardest for me. Cause you think, oh, did I do something wrong?
Don't take it personally. It's not about you.
Yeah, you don't take it personally, but I don't take it personally, but it's not nice, you know? Sometimes when it doesn't happen very often, to be honest.
But it does. It's almost like there is value and almost the respect factor needs to come in. Yeah.
And I think when there's someone that it doesn't, that hurts you, doesn't speak nice to you, or that doesn't have the same values, or maybe their intentions are very, very different from yours, like, then I think those are the moments that are hard, at least for me, because I'm a people person, I'm a values-based person, and, you know, the business is people. So I think when you might stumble upon someone that is just not in line with you, I find it hard. I don't know if you
all the time.
Yeah.
It's so
or you don't mean to hurt someone.
You inadvertently say or do something and that person completely took it out of context. And it happens.
It happens.
And I think it's sometimes it's worthwhile being as transparent as possible. And at the end of the day, we're all human trying to navigate something that, you know, you don't know how other people might perceive it. So.
Yeah. And I think that's business and that's life, right? But I always find those probably the more challenging moments because they stick with me, you know? And so I think you learn a lot about how you overcome these moments or situations. And I think that is where the most growth happens. And I know this is something probably a lot of the entrepreneurs on your show have said, but these moments, these challenges, they're hard, but man, if you can overcome it in the right way, in the right manner, in the best way possible, those are truly the moments that you grow stronger.
Absolutely. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So that would be my answer for the business.
What about the times where you felt the proudest professionally or
the proudest? Yeah. I would say after the summits. Yeah. Ying and I were just, and the whole team, right? We were just on an absolute high. I think the moments when women share stories I think just yesterday, one of our members is based in California and has like a health tech app focused on this region. She sent a message to our members group chat about looking for investors. And then she came to our meeting yesterday, our event. And I said, what are you doing here from California? And she said, oh, I don't know if you know, one of the other members connected with me. We've been speaking for months and she's investing in my business.
Wow.
I was like, what? I was like, you flew out here for this? She's like, yeah. And then, I heard both sides. And the other side, this woman went to one of our sessions on vision boarding. We call it dream boarding. And she had on her vision board a collage, which we get framed, that she wanted to invest in more women's businesses. So she said that from that session, and then when she connected with her, she knew it was like vetted because of it's like good,
of course,
good person, someone that's really devoted to what they're doing. And they took the time. And so moments like these stories just are highlights.
I mean, you've connected people. You've created businesses that are going to benefit the community as a whole. I mean, that's a huge
these moments get us excited. It's like when we just hear even nuggets of like this event changed my perspective on this. Those,
I have to say, one of my proudest moments is actually coming onto Crunchmoms. No, really. I sort of, right at the start, I kind of watched you guys thinking, Crunchmoms. It was kind of like your summit. I had it in my mind. I'm like, it would be an absolute dream and a milestone to hit. And when we started talking, I was literally like beside myself with excitement. I mean, I couldn't.
You would be amazing at summit. I mean, like you are fantastic at what you do.
And it's just,
when you came to speak at Crunchmoms, like, again, everyone had goosebumps. And this is what it is. You just speak from the heart and the soul, and there's just kindness all around. And I think that's the most important thing for women.
It's so true. Yeah. And I think that's it. Everybody wants to connect and authenticity. Yeah. I find a lot of the times, complete tangent, but you see so much stuff online and social media that is slightly less authentic than a real person talking in front of you. And having that level of connection. And I think in this day and age, you keep hearing that there's this loneliness epidemic of people becoming a bit more lonely. So that level of connection and support, whether it is emotional, professional, whatever it might be, is very much needed. And I'm telling you guys have married it all together in this beautiful setup.
We're
you should be very proud. You should be very proud.
I think what's beautiful is when you say milestones is, I just remember looking at some documents that like sketched out like on paper of like Crunchmoms in 2, 3, 5 years. And, what we did in the first year, I was like, oh, we'll achieve that. And we're doing it now.
Yeah.
So I think those are the moments where I'm like, okay, it didn't happen like in the 6 months. I was like, oh, we'll get our first like corporate client or partner, but like it takes time.
It does. Well, that's what they say. I was doing a bit of research and,
they say it takes time.
They say it takes time. But, for example, this was something that I kept reading, about the British cycling team and
I don't know the story.
Dave Brailsford. He was saying that he makes his team, they won nothing at the time, but he made incremental changes by 1%, that 1% rule to achieve your potential goal. Whether that's getting more comfortable seats, better mattresses for the athletes to sleep on. They ended up winning an X amount of gold medals and all of that. But it's these incremental changes that you make that will eventually, in a 360-degree trajectory, you'll be able to see massive change. It's not
I'm a big believer in that.
Same. I feel goal setting is a double-edged sword. So you have to be really mindful, but that's for another discussion.
I can see some peer-to-peer mentor here.
It's really between us. It's a very interesting topic because as much as I can, of course, I set loose goals, but the moment I set goals, I find it's very hard for me to meet them, especially if they're time-based and on a deadline.
Yeah. Loose goals is the way to go, right? When people ask us, where do you see Crunchmoms in 5 years? I don't have an answer for that, right? You have a few ideas and thoughts, but we're focused on like what we're doing now. And,
that's the way to go.
The incremental improvements is just getting
1%
better.
Rule.
Yeah, I like that. And I'm a big believer in it.
Proudest moment. No, let's start with the challenges. Biggest challenge personally. During the period of whether setting up your business or becoming a mother. I don't mean to pry. I'll tell you why I asked this question.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because a lot of the times people, you have to give the whole point of this podcast to give a full range of what a successful person, I'm going to say successful in air marks only because that's what it looks like on the outside. Not knowing there's so much sacrifice in the background. So I don't mean to pry.
No. It's not prying at all. I think we need to hear the stories of the lows, right? Of people. The low, I mean, last year was tough for me, personally. I think I had a 1-year-old. I was still feeding. Our house completely flooded, not from rains. It just flooded. There was mold. We had to go through construction. All our stuff was like in a construction zone for like 3 months. Kids were getting sick. Then my son broke his leg.
Oh no.
Then there was just a lot going on, right? And then I was still putting this pressure of like work on myself and I wasn't taking care of myself. So I think that was a low moment last year that like I wasn't myself, like decision making. I don't know if people noticed, but I was tired. I was really tired. So I would say that was a low where I told myself I had to make changes. And I did. I ended up making changes to give me more time to work. I wasn't always in the car driving. Our house wasn't apart. My son's leg recovered and all.
Yeah.
But I would say that was a low because that was just everything at once. But it's how I overcame it. That's when I realized if I focus on me, sounds selfish, but it's not.
No.
Then I can give to my kids and I can give to work, my partners, my friends. And so I think that I'm not like snapping at people, So I would say that was a low. If I think back of, back when I was younger, I mean, I guess the low moments would be when you don't achieve something or you don't win something that you want or
you worked really hard.
But nothing sticks out. But I would say the recent one is that last one. That's just
feeling of overwhelm.
We have these moments.
Yeah,
we have these moments of overwhelm, and it's putting in the right solutions to kind of move forward from there.
Proudest moments, personally.
Proudest moment. I can't. This is a hard one for me. I mean, not to sound like such a motherly answer, but I mean, I'm really proud of my kids.
Same, honestly.
I think everything I think about is for them. Like my kid when he was like 3, he like did his first 3-4, his first like piano recital. It was kind of like,
oh my God.
It was kind of like Asian mom, I know.
Wow. He's like a child prodigy.
It's like, no. But like, it was just kind of like, oh wow. Like I'm really proud of him. And then, I mean, there has to be something for myself.
Gosh, I need to get some tips. How we did some piano lessons. I couldn't get him to sit on the chair.
I just saw something in him with music that, the focus was hard. I mean, it was like an age where like, he would just be like here and look over there, but, you still gotta,
Zane.
Yeah, Zane.
Yeah.
Proudest moment. I mean, I was really proud of the work. I mean, a lot of my proudest moments were with my job.
Yeah.
So I think it's worth having something else. I don't know what that is.
Children.
If I can be completely honest.
No, but the majority of the time I ask any mother, what's your proudest moment? It's a child related. It's a child related answer. So it's
cheesy,
but it is. I mean, you create these little human beings and then you see them do extraordinary things and you think, I did that. That no one else has done that. So of course you're going to be proud and you should be proud. And I need to get some tips as to the piano recital.
Yeah, but my question for you then, like if the proudest moment, what are your proudest moments? If it's not work or something with kids, personally? Is there something else that covers under personal?
I think I am
Maybe I gotta figure some things out.
No, I think I am proud of the woman I am today. I'm proud that I've gained a bit more confidence.
Yeah.
I feel I'm proud that I'm comfortable with who I am. Like I'm comfortable within my own skin.
That's the most important one. Yeah. I think that's what it is. Because I think there are probably times in our lives, with your upbringing, with my upbringing, that we weren't as confident
and
maybe.
On shaky ground. And I don't feel like I have to be somebody else apart from Rhea. This is who I am, take it or leave it.
I hear women that when they reach like their 40s and their 50s.
I'm getting there.
But they just become this like, whatever people think, like we're feeling more comfortable in our skin. And this is a good achievement.
It is.
But it's not the one answer that, I don't know if that's what people have their own answers.
No, I think definitely when you ask me about what is something I'm proud of, it's definitely watching my kids do incredible things. That's always going to be. But then if I think more, put my internal sort of cap on, I'm proud of the fact that I'm no longer changing who I am.
Yeah.
And I think change is always going to happen, but it's not as drastic as it used to be when I was younger. So
you just exude confidence, but kindness. And I think
it's just, I'm quite settled internally.
That's the most important thing. Yeah. That's the inside. That's the inside that
I'm quite settled as what I can offer and knowing what I cannot offer.
Yeah.
My boundaries, confident that I kind of put my boundaries a little bit firmer than I did 10 years ago.
I think this is what everyone should work towards. I feel like I have that, but I'm still working on it. And maybe an age, no. But I think it's one of those things that you just learn in time.
It's true.
And I would love to set that as like something.
Yeah.
You can't really set that as a goal, but it's just something to continue to reflect and like try to acknowledge.
I mean, that's not to say that I don't get intimidated. I do all the time. I get very intimidated, but also at the same time,
I can't see that.
No. Like inside, I'm always constantly like shaking, but also I think if I own it, I am intimidated and I say it, and I find that is what helps me kind of get through. No, but it's just, this is how I operate and I cannot be anybody else. I will never be able to be I am this and but I am grateful to be here and I'm happy to do this. Know that I am scared and intimidated, but I have nothing else to offer apart from me, kind of thing. And that's what I'm proud of.
I think that is definitely something to be proud of, honestly, because I think not everyone's working on that for themselves.
I am still, but it's just we're getting to the point. I'll be 39 in July. Well, coming up.
Birthday bash.
Yeah. And I kept thinking, oh, okay, it's my last year of my 30s and then I'll be 40. And not that it's a big deal, but it's good to reflect. Of course, it takes a village is wonderful, but the growth personally, what happened,
Yeah. So you'll feel so proud.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
I am.
As I find an advocate for female entrepreneurship, what do you think is the most, I would say, pressure or something that's lacking in terms of support to female entrepreneurs?
Yeah. This is a great question. Yeah. I think we're a big believer in like women in the workplace. Yeah. I mean, our mission is to keep women active in the workplace. So whether it's an entrepreneurship or going back to work. And I would say the issues that women face in work is what we all know, the flexibility, perhaps the right mentorship and growth opportunities. Perhaps it's just, it's being in a male dominated place, right? If you see all of your examples and your leaders are all male, like, do you want that life? If you see that it's a woman, like, is that where you would want yourself to be? So I think it's having more mentors and more women that are not just your like tough corporate women. I only know this is my life. Like, I feel like sometimes in corporate, you become just like this
hardened.
This cookie cutter that everyone is this like tough, but like people should show more of this personal side of them or the real side. And I think if you see more of that real side in leadership in corporates that are women and provide the flexibility and the support for career progression, and obviously you should be good at your job but also be able to like learn and grow at the same time. I think if we have a better path for women there, then, I think it's better for the workforce. It's better to have, I mean, imagine just being around like the same cookie cutters all the time. You need that diversity in any type of environment. Absolutely. So I would say that's what's kind of lacking, I would say, in the workplace. But I think a lot of the companies they're acknowledging it, they're realizing it. It's not just like a fluffy topic that people are talking about, like women, moms. Yeah, it's a real thing. And I think the more that women voice it, men voice it, then in time.
Your advice on women. So let's say the lovely person who's listening to this podcast, if you could give them sort of a takeaway, if they're on that brink of wanting to start something on their own, aside from joining Crunchmoms, what would your advice be?
I would say just don't overthink it. Don't overthink it and do it. Like just do it. But if you,
it doesn't have to be perfect.
Just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. But what I will say is think of the problem that you're solving. Think of the vision of what you're wanting to achieve. Like for us, it's, keeping women active in the workplace. For someone else, maybe it's providing educational toys for kids, right? Think about the thing that will keep you going. Think about the team and the people that will be on that journey with you.
That's very important.
Because I put this Instagram visual out. Yeah, remember about time?
Yeah.
You spend a lot of your time with the people you work with. Yeah, make it fun. But the most important thing is try to understand the days and day in and out of the work that you have to do to get there, right? If you're having to like do admin, if you're having to do Instagram visuals, Instagram, like calling up people, there's a lot of coordination in the admin stuff of work that helps you get to the big vision. And if that's the stuff that you don't enjoy, then you might want to think again. Like, I think when I had an idea of like beauty home services, I'm not someone that is so passionate about finding the best specialists, So think about the little details. And if at the end of the day, you know, you're not spending time with your kid because you're so passionate about your job, but you're just handling like Instagram posts or something, and that's not something you love, then
think of ways to potentially delegate it.
Or is that what you want to be doing? Is it another passion that you have? So I would say do it. While I'm saying don't overthink it, I'm like, don't.
I think what you're saying is definitely do it. Have a think about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a perfect thought, but have a think about if you want to continuously do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think you also reach a point where if something doesn't work, there are so many ways to pivot. So it's not all doom and gloom. Just start.
Exactly. You don't know where it will lead.
Yeah.
And I think the don't overthink is don't overthink. I can't do this. Why? Like the reasons that are blocking you maybe.
Yeah.
But speak to people that have done it so that you know what they're day in and day out of.
That's true.
Yeah. It should get you excited.
Yeah. It should get you excited.
Yeah, you should have something.
Yeah. I totally agree with that one. So let's say, for example, if I was to ask you about the legacy you want to leave with Crunchmoms, what would that look like?
You know, I think the legacy is that women, moms or not moms, know that they have options and they're not stuck. Time out doesn't mean that they can't get back in. Being in a marriage where they're not making money feels like they don't have the control or the influence. They do. And I think there are resources out there. There are ways. It doesn't have to be Crunchmoms. Just speaking to someone else to get you out of something. You have options, and you can do it.
Absolutely, I love it.
I'm going to be in tears from that line.
No, it's so true. Yeah. You have options, and you've got people that can support. The one thing that I have learned, number one, obviously with Crunchmoms, but also with this podcast, is there are so many people that are ready and willing to offer a helping hand. And that was the most refreshing part of it. So don't be afraid to ask and
100%
seek that level of connection or whatever it might be.
Well, the number of people that I was like, can we have a 15-minute call, 20-minute call? Can I pick your brains? And when you're genuine and you have the right intentions and they can see that they can help, they love it. Yeah, they love it.
And would love to help you in your journey. And they do follow up on you. And it's a wonderful space. It's not, you know, again, there's always this misconception we live in this hyper competitive world and everyone's a shark. Not necessarily. Soften it down a little bit.
Surround by good people. Like I feel when people say like, oh, people don't support women, I'm like, I never feel that with the people I'm around. I feel like,
but maybe we pick them. We cherry pick.
And we should be intentional. I think this is where people should be intentional and life is better that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Julie, I can talk to you for another 2 hours.
I know. Honestly. This is really nice.
Like,
I've really enjoyed it.
But I always end the podcast with a quote. Now, I find quotes are one of those things that we use them all the time. We throw them around in general conversation or whatever it is. So, and I find it does give context to the discussion that we had. So my quote for today was empowered women empower women. And now, obviously, I'm going to ask, what is one that you tend to use a lot or live by?
It's a good quote. You want me to just say it or you want me to give some background as well to it?
Both.
So this quote is, you are in control of your own destiny.
Yeah.
And the reason I live by this quote is because I think a lot of it goes back to my corporate job. When I was in a corporate job, I was like, someone was like, oh, you should go for this next role. I was like, oh no, but I've only done 1 year here. I need to do another year, 2 years, and then maybe go. And they're like, you're in control of your destiny. Why does it have to be like that? And I was like, oh, good point. I think it was like a mentor of mine. So I think whether you're running a business, you are in control of it. So I think it's an important one for all people.
It really is. Yeah. You're in control and you've got the power. So
I don't know who said it, but
it doesn't matter. I mean, the fact that you use it every day and it's, these things, they kind of swirl around in your head a lot. And, they do make a difference. Yeah. It's an affirmation. It's a quote. It's something that you live by.
And I'm sure you've said it. What's your quote that you live by?
God, you've put me on the spot. I'm the one asking you the questions.
Yeah. Okay, we can save that one for another time.
One that I live by, there's a lot.
Yeah, there are a lot of good quotes.
Yeah, there's a lot. I think one of them is honestly, you sort of live each day as if it was your last.
Oh.
I don't do it as often, but it's one of those ones that I always think if I'm having a bad day, it's like, come on, just get out of it. You know, like if this was your last day, you wouldn't be really worried about whatever is going on.
That's true.
So
maybe I'll ask it to you at Crunchmoms Summit.
I mean, again, I'm saying don't play games with my heart, but yes, that would be incredible. It would be amazing.
I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so
much.
And
I hope the listeners enjoyed listening as well.
Of course. It was amazing. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
I loved it. It was an honor to be here, and I'm proud of everything you're doing, honestly. And I can't wait to be on this journey with you and just keep watching you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to They Say It Takes a Village. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I look forward to bringing you another one next week. Don't forget, please subscribe, rate, and review so I can reach and help even more parents. And if you've got a topic that you'd like me to cover, please head over to my Instagram page, ittakesavillage.me, and drop me a line.